good afternoon. I'm Rachel with Evergreen Certifications, here today to talk about our Certified Personality Disorder Treatment Professional certification. I have the honor of having Dr. Fox with me here today. I'm going to pass it over to him to introduce himself.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So my name is Dr. Fox. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Texas at the moment, but from New York. And I worked 21 years in federal prisons. I have a private practice specializing in personality disorders, working with complicated cases. I've also traveled the world giving various presentations and seminars on how to help mental health providers manage complex clients, particularly those with personality disorders. So thank you very much for having me. And I've got a bunch of books and stuff, but thank you for having me.
Just a bunch of books and stuff that are pretty great too. So we're going to hop into some questions surrounding the certification and have your expertise in answering some of those. So let's hop into those questions. So first of all, why should professionals get education and certified in personality disorder treatment? Why is that so powerful for people in the field?
I find that a lot of individuals in working with clients that have personality disorders, a lot of mental health providers, that a lot of times they feel like they're getting overwhelmed. They can kind of get lost in the content. And I actually call that the shotgun effect. And what happens is that you're with a client, they give you all of this content and you get overwhelmed with it. It's problems with themselves. It's problems with their parents. It's problems with their partners. It's problems with work or school or the therapeutic environment. They don't trust the therapeutic environment. They don't trust, the mental health provider. And that shotgun effect gets so overwhelming because as mental health providers, we want to help people, right? We want to be able to give them a lane out of, I don't mean for this to rhyme, but it's a lane out of the pain that they're experiencing. And it's very, very complicated. So I think, this course, when I was approached to do it, I was really excited about it because I think the goal is not only to help mental health providers understand the complexity and an approach to treatment for personality disorders that have worked really well for me for over 20 years. And I think that having that grasp, a lot of times you can't really get that grasp on the content because a lot of CEs or CEUs, without having that foundational aspect, that they're very good seminars and they're very good courses. But I think a lot of times without having a more broader foundational component, you can kind of get lost because you feel like you're getting pieces, but you're missing the foundation in which to attach those pieces. And I think this course was a really good opportunity to present that, to help to build that foundation on what all of us learned in graduate school and in our practicums and in our practice, and whether it's in prisons or hospitals or private practice or whatever it is. So it's providing that foundational component, where also just the other aspect I think is being able to present to your clients in a way that I've got you. Like I was just talking to a client yesterday and she's like, if I start talking about this, I'm going to freak out. And I said, it's okay to freak out. I've got you. I've had other people freak out. It's okay. I've got you. And that made her feel like she was in a safe space and she was able to do it. And the freak out wasn't even that bad. Now to her it was, but from my perspective, we managed it. She's doing great. It's all good.
Yeah. For everyone listening, the course that you are mentioning on our website, all of the links to those courses will be out there. Obviously, one of the pieces of becoming certified is to take content. So all of those great courses you'll be able to find linked on our website. I really like that you brought up the safety aspect of making sure your clients are able to feel safe and trusted with you.
Oh, yeah.
So specifically, personality disorders, how you teach it, how the requirements for the education piece for the certification, what's unique? Kind of how do you take the therapist through gaining the knowledge they need in personality disorders in order to obtain the certification?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so what I did with the course is, so I started where I start with a client, and the nice thing about the course is I had time to start at the beginning and sort of lay it out. So my approach entails sort of a dual construct as it approaches personality disorders, which makes personality disorders unique from other mental health conditions. And that is that there's core content and surface content. And core content are those things that drive maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns. So if we use borderline personality disorder, for example, classic core content, and I talk about this in the course, like classic, and there's absolutely individualized core content for the individuals. Not everybody's the same, regardless of personality disorder or what it may be. So classic core content for someone with borderline personality disorder would be fear of abandonment, rejection sensitivity, and emptiness. And these are three central components that are pretty unique to BPD and people that not only would meet criteria for the full disorder, but also those that are on the spectrum, that borderline personality disorder spectrum. So it helps us not only sort of distinguish what we're working with, but also build that insight and how to identify core content in your clients. Now, core content isn't always maladaptive. I have it, Rachel, you have it, everybody's got core content. The thing is with personality disorders is it tends to largely be maladaptive, and it tends to be destructive to relationships, to self. And the way that we see it is destructive, and the way that we qualify it most of the time, or a majority of the criteria in the DSM-5 TR, which is what we're currently using, but also that's what we use in this country, or in various countries, they tend to use that as well. Anyway, I digress. But the surface content is the rage, is the intensive emotional expression, is attacking your partner, is self-harm, attacking yourself, is the thoughts of suicide or killing their mental health provider, which we don't.
We hope that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, but I've had clients that have had that fantasy, and from what they've told me, it hasn't always been me, which is good. But you know, but that's part of that surface content. And that goes to what we were talking about the first time, is that a lot of times you can feel lost with that when you're working with a client who's having fantasies about harming others. And sometimes you're one of those others. How do you manage that? You have to get to the core content. Now, core content isn't easy without going too much into, you know, what's in the course, but core content is well protected. It's protected by defense mechanisms. So that can be defiance, that can be denial, that can be acting out, it can be all of those defense mechanisms, and how we identify defense mechanisms. And also in the course, which I think was really cool, and I love talking about, is that it's setting up trajectories for clients. We can't approach all clients, and I don't think mental health providers do this, but once we identify a diagnosis and comorbid conditions, so borderline personality disorder, for example, major depressive disorder, right? It's comorbid 85% of the time. And that could also be part of bipolar disorder, whatever it may be. So if we're looking at that, how do we develop a trajectory to go forward with this client, to go to the next session, to go to the next 10 sessions, whatever it is? And I think too many things tend to occur. So we're all very busy. We all have a lot going on, and it's hard to sit down and say, okay, where are we going with this client? How do we identify trajectories that's going to help this client reach that goal that in a lot of cases they're afraid to reach because their maladaptive beliefs, behavior, and patterns have had short-term rewards, and short-term rewards are tough, right? We got to look at the long-term consequences and the long-term rewards, but we got to get in there first, you know, and that goes to collaboration and building trust and things like that. But if you don't know who you're working with, meaning going to that core content and identifying it, how can you develop a successful trajectory? And in my experience, with my doctoral students and with my own clinical experience, I don't think we can. So I think this helps to shine a light on that. This course really, that was one of my emphasis, is to really help shine a light on that.
Great, thank you. So in order to obtain the personality disorder certification with Evergreen, one of our requirements is the applicant has to have a minimum of 100 hours of therapeutic contact with individuals with personality disorders or traits before applying for the certification. Kind of walk us through why that requirement is so important, that therapists before gaining the certification really have that base experience working with these individuals.
Yeah, that's a great example. I have a great analogy. Imagine that there was a food critic who had never, a French food critic who'd never had French food. And so they're sitting down, they're first trying this French dish, and they're like, oh, well, I'm going to compare it to this, I guess. This is my understanding of French food, French culture, whatever it is. But once you have that experience, you have that feel of being in there, so much is open. The perspective is open, because now not only do you recognize your strengths, but you recognize your areas of challenge and where you need growth. I think if you were to approach this course without that requirement, I think you would end up being in that French restaurant going, well, I mean, it's real creamy, you know, yeah, okay. I mean, I guess this is it, but it's not, because personality disorders present very differently. Now, I recognize that that's my opinion. I believe it's shared by a lot of individuals within the field. But personality disorders present so differently. They add so many unique challenges because of the core content, surface content, the duality of the disorder. But I think without that understanding, without that foundation and those hours, I think you'll feel lost. You'll be like, oh, well, this core content stuff, I mean, no one taught me that in school, because they don't teach it anymore. So when I was in school 20 something years ago, we talked about that. I mean, that's what drew me to this particular program, is that we talked about foundations of personality, development of personality. Without that, I think that you can really kind of get lost in it and not realize, I want to say importance, but I recognize that importance, that word can be different to everybody, but I'm just going to say importance. I'm going to go for it. That the importance of recognizing that there are differences in working with individuals with personality disorders than those who don't. And that was a big emphasis. And I think that requirement helps to really cut out a lot of that initial confusion that someone who didn't have sort of that breadth of experience would miss.
Yeah. I really like that you pointed out people being able to recognize where their strengths and weaknesses are. Because if you come into learning with that understanding, you're really going to be able to get more out of the content, because you're going to know where you're struggling with your own clients and be able to really hone in on what you want to improve on. So I like that point a lot.
Yeah, no, and exactly. And I think what a lot of people have mentioned to me is that, in my seminars and other things, and I hope in this course too, where as you're going through it, you're like, that was Jimmy.
Yep.
That was Stacy. That was Yolanda. That was, Maria, whatever it is. But then things start to connect and you're like, oh man, well, now what do I do? Now I kind of see them in this light, right? And it's not a pejorative light or anything like that. It's just seeing them from this particular therapeutic lens and approach. And you're like, oh, what's going on inside him or her that we can tap into to help them grow beyond it? Because if you don't tap into core content, you tend to have a lot of short-term growth. Mm-hmm. So that's also been my experience.
So you kind of segued me nicely into my next question. So after completing the education content and getting your certification, your initial certification, we require that individuals renew by maintaining continuing education in the topic area of personality disorders. Now, why is it so important that individuals in the field maintain their knowledge in this topic?
So I can answer that in so many different ways, but I do feel that our field, we are so behind technologically, right? And COVID was horrible, but COVID brought us into teletherapy. COVID, even though, SIPAC, so as a psychologist, that means I can practice in specified states and also different countries around the world. If as a licensed psychologist, you can practice in different countries with very easy approval. You can get that very easily. But by doing that, I think that you have to know those changes. What has changed? So, using AI, believe it or not, there are applications within our field in order to do that. And we have to stay on top of that. Also, we continue to make advances in neurological distinctions of those with personality disorders and those without. And so I think continuing to get those CEs, even though, and believe me, I know it's a hassle. It is a hassle, but I always try to pick really cool ones and ones that some are personality disorder, just because I'm really fascinated by that, but also things that are not. And I think by doing that, I think I'm always trying to stay on top of what's going on out there, as well as ethics continue to change. So we have to do that. But also, how can we apply this to my clients? So how, as the field continues to change, do I feel like I'm up to date? And I do feel pretty up to date. Like I just did a CEU the other day, and I was like, oh, that was really cool. And afterwards, I kind of think about it, and I'm like, oh, how would I apply this to this client, that client, this situation? And I kind of do that a little bit, but so many of us don't. And I think we attend these CEUs and we're like, oh, that's kind of a neat technique. I think that's cool. And then we never do anything with it or how to apply it. So I always try to slow down and do that. But I think if we don't do that, we don't get that up-to-date information, we lose out and we stay in the background. We stay out of touch with what's going on and with what's going on with our clients. I mean, a lot of my clients are younger than me, and I learn a lot from them, but I'm trying to keep up, and I think there's a lot of good CE programs that are out there that help me do that as well.
Yeah, that's a really great thing about Evergreen is we accept CE content from any accredited training organization. So as you mentioned, we all are going to gravitate towards different speakers and different formats, and we want people to find what they enjoy the most, and then they can use that in order to meet the requirements for certification and for renewal. So one final question. I appreciate your time today. So we're just going to ask you one final question. Sure. What specifically about personality disorders are you so passionate about? And then why did you want to help Evergreen make those certification standards be due to that passion?
Okay, you asked the question. Here it comes. Yep. It can be a really long one, but it won't. So first and foremost, I think personality disorders goes back to wanting to work with people and finding ways of helping individuals that have these ingrained, prolonged patterns that are so destructive to themselves, their lives, and their relationships. And I think I've always been fascinated by that. And I often in my head, I think, I always want to help the underdog kind of, get up that ladder, right? To achieve that level of success. Now, that doesn't mean everybody with personality disorder is an underdog and all this, but they have a lot of unique barriers that a lot of times they've created themselves, but they're afraid to look at that. So it's exceptionally challenging. And I'm just always fascinated. As many years as I've been doing this, I cannot think of one client, believe it or not, I cannot think of one client where I was sitting there going, oh my God, I'm so bored. Really? I mean, is this really your problem? I mean, come on, get it together. I've never been, just kind of bored like that. And I'm just so passionate about this because I think it's exceptionally just so fascinating and so interesting, because a lot of these maladaptive patterns, like I don't have, and I want to know how did you create that? I mean, there has to be an intrinsic interest, right? I mean, what is it, right? And are there aspects like where did you develop this idea or this strategy, maladaptive strategy, that self-pain was in some way helpful to get through high stress, or that, intensive fantasies about someone else where you get detached from what's going on around you, that is an adaptive or helpful response. Now, I understand it early in their life where it came from and that it may have been adaptive, becomes maladaptive, but there's such a challenge in doing that. And I just absolutely love that. And I think it is absolutely cool. So I'm just absolutely fascinated. And I think that the course in doing that, I think your question was how does my excitement kind of translate into the course? Is that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's kind of okay. So what you see out of me is exactly what my clients see. I mean, I think all of my clients, and I'm not splitting, but I think all of my clients are like, man, you always have so much energy. I'm like, yeah, because I love doing this. Like, I've wanted to do this since I was very, very small. We're not going to get into that right now. So why? We're not getting that. But I mean, this is just I love what I do. I think it is so cool and fascinating, and it's just absolutely amazing. And the fact that I get to do it and I can make a living doing it, and I get to meet these cool people, not only other mental health providers that have this interest or similar challenges or similar experiences, but like people that are in the thick of it and people that are really trying to struggle. That's exceptionally fascinating. And here comes the cherry on top. It is absolutely amazing when you can see someone who was just caught up in alcohol and drugs and self-harm and promiscuity and relationship destruction. And then after working with them, you know, for some time, and that you see their tenacity and you see that strength that they have, that translates to this course. In talking about some of the clients that I worked with, like, aren't we all just amazed by our clients that continue to battle this battle in order to do things differently? I mean, how are we not? And I am often in awe of my clients. They're like, oh, this guy's way overstating it. I'm not overstating it at all. That person that I'm talking about was one person, and I've been seeing her for some time. And today, alcohol's under control, no more drugs, hasn't self-harmed in years, you know, has a stable relationship with her parents, right? Is now, get a load of this, is now going out on dates. I mean, how lucky am I to be a part of that? And how lucky are we to be in this field and to be able to learn about these things and understand these things? And I think the approach that I talk about in my approach that I'm passionate about, and in teaching it and connecting with other mental health providers so they can have that same feel. I'm a big sharer, Rachel, I love to share. But why not share that experience? If you can sit across from your client and just be like, dang, he or she, they're tenacious as hell. And that is so incredibly cool. And just to be able to do that and share that. And I think that comes across in the course, because I can't help it. I just think it is absolutely so cool and fascinating. Did I answer your question, or did I digress?
I can assure everyone watching that the passion and excitement you brought today is also brought through in everything you train in. So I don't think anyone will be disappointed with any content they take of yours. I also appreciate with that excitement and with this topic that can be, if we're being honest, be daunting for a lot of therapists to undergo with clients. You make it seem very, again, exciting, but also accessible and doable. So again, there will be no disappointment when people watch and take your content.
Yeah. I hope not. And I think, you know, I do always try to present as very open, accessible, and responsive, because I've had incredible mentors and people in my life that I have reached out to and or trained under, or whatever, who were exceptionally giving. And I think that our goal is to give back. So I give back to my students, I give back to other mental health providers, and I think that that's just part of our field. You know, that we got to be giving back and helping everybody. And it's through courses like this, and it's through, you know, various other modalities or approaches, or you know, or even emails. I mean, I've had you know, students who have taken courses, and they've written me, said, oh, I saw this, but I had a question. You email me that you're 99.9% of the time, unless it gets lost, it's that 0.1%.
Technology.
Yeah, you'll get an answer from me. Yeah, for sure. Right. We should all support each other. This can be a hard job. A hard job, especially if we're on an island all by ourselves. And you're not working with hard, complicated clients. Mental health providers have to know you're not all alone out there. And if you're sitting across from somebody and you have that moment where you're like, I got nothing. Mm-hmm. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, you know, it happens to me. It happens to my mentors too. I sit across from them, you know, maybe we'll be at dinner or whatever. And he's like, what do you think about, cause I'm sitting across from her or him. And I'm like, and I think it's these courses, it's these types of information out there, things like that help people understand it's okay to be, and that's those notifiers that we got to find that core content. Maybe we're missing it, or how can I connect to this person so this person and I can work together to dissolve or attenuate the, because happens.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Fox, I appreciate you taking the time today. We appreciate all of your efforts in helping us develop this certification, and thank you and have a good afternoon.
Well, you're very welcome. And I hope I wasn't too verbose. It was fun. I love talking about this stuff. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, you too.